when Nicolas Cage very hammily screams, "My eyes! They're in my eyes!" They're not.
Hello, welcome to Guides the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And with the beginning of a new month is the beginning of a new theme for October, since it's so many of our favorite times of year.
It's just confusing sentencing. With the beginning of a new month comes the beginning of a new theme, because it's so many of our favorite times of year.
I was pulling it out of my ass. I don't know. Everybody loves October.
Well, could you pull it out of somewhere better?
No.
Than your ass?
No, that's my best place.
How about your brain?
No, won't. Anyway, William, you rude little bitch. We are doing... Last year, we did something called Slashtober, where we talked about slasher movies all month. This year, we are doing Cagetober, where we are going to be talking about Nicolas Cage horror-themed movies all month.
Yeah, this is in a weird
requested.
Way. It was requested frequently. This is almost a long time coming.
Yeah,
for us to do this at all, and I can't believe we're finally here. We're going to be doing Nicolas Cage movies all month.
Yep,
and obviously we are starting with one of the most notorious Nicolas Cage horror movies, The Wicker Man.
How could we not?
All
right, William, what is your history with The Wicker Man?
I think my history with The Wicker Man is very similar to other people. I knew about how there was an original. I knew that there was a movie from the 70s, but I had never seen it until this episode.
Yep.
So I knew this as a Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah.
And this was, in 2006-ish when this came out, everybody started like crapping themselves over how horrible it was. And so I remember I watched the videos, on a loop and would show friends. Somebody put together a supercut of all the ridiculous things that Nicolas Cage does and says in this movie.
Yep.
Because the movie became a meme. The movie became a joke for how bizarre Nicolas Cage's performance was.
I know.
And that's really all I knew about it.
I think this might have really been the kickoff of like Nicolas Cage. We are all publicly together acknowledging that this guy is wacky.
I think it was known that he was odd, but I think this was the beginning of like the celebration.
Yes.
Where we were making fun of him. Yes. But also I think people were genuinely like, what is this guy's doing something that nobody else does?
Right.
Like how like Keanu Reeves is sort of, exalted for people a lot. I think this is one of the first times that Nicolas Cage really started to become like a king, a film king for what the hell he's doing.
I 100% agree. It made everybody wake up and take notice that this guy's out here doing something a little different.
He is. So what's your history?
I mean, same. Exact same. There's no need to even repeat it. I was thrilled when this came out and I got to see it and see how kooky it was. Loved the supercuts, the whole deal.
So you saw it when it first came out?
I think so. I mean, I didn't see it in the theater or anything, but I feel like I was aware of this pretty early on.
Yeah.
Don't you? I mean, I feel like we watched this.
Really? Because watching it for this show, I don't think I had ever seen the movie before.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so surprised. Okay, maybe we didn't. I definitely saw the movie. And it's something else.
I for sure, the supercuts, I had seen tons of, but it wasn't until like...
all those classic lines really came back to me watching the movie. Like, how to get burned, how to get burned, how to get burned.
How to get burned, how to get burned, how to get burned. And he's acting so big. One of my favorite, I took so many goddamn notes that we're not going to get to about both versions of the movie, but one of my favorite things in The Wicker Man at all, and by the way, we're going to spoil Wicker Man, the original completely. And the 2006 Nicolas Cage movie. But so there's a quality in the movies. They're fundamentally about person from the quote unquote civilized, Christian nation of America going to a almost like an Amish community type place where they have a pagan religion. And so it's a sort of a culture clash, but also this civilized man can't understand what they're doing and ends up.
That's much more in the original than the Nicolas Cage version.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I firmly agree. But like the core of the idea is there, like civilization versus going to a place where they worship old gods.
Mm-hmm.
And a commonality between the two movies is that everybody who lives on this island seems to have names for plants.
Yeah.
So the little girl that our hero is going to try to, she's said to have been missing, and he's trying to figure out what happened to her. Was she killed? Is she still alive? Who took her? If she's still alive? Her name is Rowan, which is a type of tree. There are people named Willow and Beech and Lily, Ivy. And in the Nicolas Cage movie, at one point, he goes into a classroom and he's talking to these kids. He's like, "Oh, what's your name, little girl?" And she goes, "Lily." And then he asks everybody, do you all know your classmate Rowan? Was she your classmate? And they all deny knowing her. Everybody denies that this girl even exists.
Right.
It's like the main setup to both movies. And when he checks the school's like ledger, he finds Rowan's name in the book and he goes, "You little liars."
Yep.
And then he turns to the teacher and he goes, "And you're the biggest liar of them all, miss." And she says, "Rose." Mm-hmm. And then he goes, "Of course, Rose." And then he does something that I can't even understand really. He's already looked at the class and called them all a bunch of little liars. And he's made it clear he hates these children. And then when the teacher says, "My name is Rose," he then turns back to the class and gestures like, "Of course, right? Another plant."
They're not your allies in this.
No, he shoots it out to them like they're his audience.
Right.
Who are with him in like, all these plant names.
Uh-huh.
But he just chastised them and made it clear he hates, of course, another plant speaking out to the back row of the room. And it's like, what is this?
I feel like that classroom scene is a real turning point in the movie.
So that's what I asked you. I asked you before we recorded. I was like, try to pay attention to where you think the movie goes just completely off the rails.
Yes.
And that was it for me. Scene. It was the classroom scene.
Yeah, like the entirety of it. Actually, I have some, because I had that in mind when I was watching it. I was like, all right, let me keep an eye out. There are so many weird things, and it's hard to tell how much is just like, well, I guess it's weird anyway. I was going to say Nicolas Cageism versus like the weird turning point. I just want to mention real quick. I'm not sure we've mentioned it. So the deal is that it's an outsider cop who is going to this island to investigate a missing little girl. Right. That's the premise of it. And everybody he asks about the little girl is like, it's very confusing because some people are like, I don't know who you're talking about. I've never seen them before.
She doesn't exist.
Yeah. Or they just talk in weird riddles.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yes, I've seen her. No, I don't know where she is. No, like just not making any sense. So here are some of the things that I was keeping my eye out for as the moment. And they're not the case. It's just strange. I don't know. Like second he walks into the little bar thing they have, he says, name's Malis, Edward Malis. And he says it in kind of a weird way.
Because I don't believe him. I don't believe him when he says his own name. You know what I mean? Like
his whole interaction with Sister Beach is strange. Like all of it.
It's awful.
Yeah, like I wrote that he says, as long as I'm not intruding like a weirdo, I don't even know what the inflection for that was. She gives him mead and there's like a long shot of him drinking it. And they kind of set you up to think he's going to think it's like gross or something, but he drinks it. And then I think he's like, very good, very good. All right. And then like turns and addresses the bar.
So here's what's really happening. Now we each watched the 1973 original.
Yes.
And the 2006 version. I watched the 70s Wicker Man first, and then I watched the Nick Cage movie.
Right.
And I believe you did the reverse.
That's correct.
You watched the Nick Cage version, then you went back to 1973.
Yep.
I got an alarming text from you.
Yes.
Where you proclaimed something that I was genuinely shocked by, because I texted you saying like, hey, if you haven't watched the 73 original, I love it and I legitimately recommend it.
Yeah.
And then you texted me before recording. You said, I like the Wicker Man remake more than the original. I'm not kidding.
Yes, it's true.
I don't understand how you can, because everything Nicolas Cage is doing is influenced by the original. And so when he does something that's nonsensical,
William, just like when you talk about how, taking a book from page to screen is a chance for a second draft.
No.
Perhaps the same here.
No, that's a huge mistake.
No. Here's the thing. He is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I won't say that it is a better movie. Now, I just had to be true to myself in sharing this, because this is how I feel, and we're talking about this the whole episode. It's not impossible that were I not talking about this on a public forum, I would keep this opinion to myself. But I can't talk about these movies.
Don't hide your light under a bushel.
Well, it could be backlash, not unlike when I announced publicly that I liked the 2017 version of The Mummy more than I liked the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
I forgot about that. Yeah, there was rioting.
Yeah, in the streets. But no, so he's ridiculous. I enjoy watching it more. I was more engaged watching The Wicker Man 2006. So there's that. And I realized that has a for sure element of irony to it, because it's like very ridiculous and stuff. But there are some genuine elements of it that I like as a story better.
Oh.
I like that the island that he goes to is just women everywhere, then with a small smattering of men. I was disappointed when I started watching The Wicker Man 1973, which I have seen before, but I really didn't remember. And they're just like dudes everywhere. I was like, oh, it's not really the same like culty vibe exactly. So I like that. In the 2006 Wicker Man, women have built themselves a utopian society, basically, if not murderous, where men are really just there for the purposes of procreation.
Right.
And somehow they've gotten them to Stockholm Syndrome their way into this or something, because the men there don't seem like they're like clawing at Nicolas Cage to get away. The only one who wants to get away is Lily Sobieski. The guys are fine, even though it seems like their tongues are cut out or something.
Does Lily Sobieski want to get away?
Yeah, she says like, when you leave, will you take me with you? And
doesn't
he's like,
kick her into a wall?
Yes, he does. That was later.
Why did he kick her into a wall?
Because she was stopping him from stopping the May Day ceremony that he thought was killing Rowan.
So why did she do that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was like
to leave.
I don't know. Maybe she wanted to leave, but she's still like deeply in this enough that
he high kicks her into.
Yes, that's crazy. He takes the heel of his hand and like hits her on the chin, and then backs up a little bit, like all fast, like a little boxer, and then like high kicks her into a wall of pictures.
I have to tell you, he did not feel like a police officer to me in this movie at all. Not an ounce.
I gotta tell you, I don't think I reflected on it in that way. But no, he certainly doesn't seem like
he doesn't seem like a cop.
Although there is a moment where I was like, no, that's cop thinking, where they were outside looking at like a tomb or something, him and Willow.
Yeah.
And she was like, nobody has looked in that in forever. And he's like, the lock's new. And I was like, okay.
New.
Yeah.
The lock is brand new. So that's the one. Aside from him dressing like a cop in the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
But he shows up to the island dressed like, Mr. Rogers. He's wearing a sweater vest.
Is he?
And he puts on cologne on the ferry on the way, and like when he shows up, he looks like
his ex-fiance.
He looks like a professor. He's dressed like Jimmy Stewart, and he shows up to this island. And in the original movie, so the original movie has a guy named Sergeant Howie, and he lands in a boat or in a seaplane.
Right.
So he lands in the water, and he's dressed like a cop. And he's Scottish or British. So like he's got the policeman's hat, and it's got the checkered black and white band going around it. And he's very regimented and very sturdy. And he's got like a major stick up his ass, right?
Yeah.
Like, because he's a very regimented, trained policeman, and he's going to take this matter quite seriously. So when he arrives in this commune where everybody is like free love and like they're nude running around outside in the dark and stuff, it doesn't compute for him. He doesn't get it. And so you almost watch his like circuits fry, this like robotic, heavily trained man having to make sense of these people that don't follow his, uptight Catholicism.
Yeah.
And then Nicolas Cage shows up and he's like, what's in the bag? Is it a shark?
Hey, what was that?
I don't. They had a bloody sack, and he asked if there was a shark in it, and they didn't reveal what it was.
I know.
I have no idea. But so as he's walking around the island, Nick Cage, he'll go like, at one point he goes like, "This is a legal matter." He says to people, he's like, "I swear to God, I will arrest you." And his cadence and the way he carries himself, you know what I realized he sounded like? He sounds like anti-maskers who are going around going like, this is a legal matter and this is my rights and you cannot. And I won't have this. I'm allowed in here. And Nicolas Cage is just running around this island, kicking doors open and ripping masks off children.
I did think.
And going, I swear to God, I'm serious.
They are literal masks, which is funny. Yeah, at a certain point, I was like, oh, this guy's such a narc.
Yes.
Like, what a killjoy.
Yes.
He doesn't know what's going on.
No.
But just like ripping masks off of children and like harshing their nice island mellow. I was like, get the hell out of here.
He feels like a guy who got his cop talk from watching CSI. Right. I don't believe in anything that he says. He has no authority. Every time he says anything about like arresting somebody, they all laugh at him.
They don't give a crap. And I really like that. I like that everybody is basically gaslighting him and being like, okay, the whole time.
Right.
I don't know. I like what am I trying to say? I don't know if the structure is right. I like a lot of the bones of it better. I like that Ellen Burstyn is like Sister Summersisle or whatever, even though
she's
I like
the Lord of
Christopher Lee in the original.
Right.
Yeah, just all of that stuff works better for me. And just their total like off the gridness. So like in the 1973 version, there's like a raucous pub where they're singing. It's like a bunch of dudes like sloshing their giant flagons of mead together and singing a gross song about the landlord's daughter. Whereas in this, it's just like a bunch of women like braiding like daisy crowns and taking care of each other and stuff. And
he walks in.
Weird. It's weird and wrong and creepy.
Nick Cage walks in and goes, he goes, is it ladies' night?
Yeah, but it's creepy like the island in the 2006 one is more different from our society than the island is in the 1973 one. And I like that better.
See, I actually think it's more effective for it to be so close to our society. The only difference at all is that, like Christianity did not reach
them.
Right. So like
that is cool. Yeah.
So otherwise they're just as quote unquote civilized as we are. They just believe a different thing, so to speak.
Well, they also they're not as civilized, quote unquote, as we are because they're like doing it outside and having philosophy classes, which are all the girls like running around a fire naked, which is awesome.
Was that that was not a philosophy class? They have an actual classroom.
No, it was a class.
The girls running around the fire?
Yes, it was because the cop was like, "What's going on here?" And the Fair Isle or Summers Isle guy is like, yes, learning. I don't know if it was philosophy, but something." And he's like, "They're not going to learn that way, naked." And he's like, "Well, our learning is a bit different than yours, or whatever."
I thought they were praying. They were praying to get pregnant or something like that.
They were.
To be fertile. So I didn't think that was a class. But so when he goes, they do that nude. And then Christopher Lee goes like, well, it'd be a hair more dangerous to jump across the fire if they were clothed, don't you think? I was like, it's a good, sick retort, Summer Isle.
Yeah, solid logic.
In the classroom in the 73 version, I wrote down what was written on the blackboard because it was awesome. He erases what's on the blackboard to write Rowan's name to get the kids' attention. And it said on the board before he erased it, the Cockney stone preserves the pith of the milk. The snail stone preserves the eyes from the darkness. The toad stone preserves the newly born from the weird woman. Is it
weird like WYRD or just straight up weird?
Straight up weird.
Yeah.
And the hag stone preserves people from nightmare.
Nice.
Which is just awesome.
Yeah, it's completely awesome.
Everything they talk about is awesome. See, the reason that I love the 73 original so much more, and honestly, I think some of it is also just like the quality of film and performing and filmmaking to me.
Mhm.
Like the 2006 version has these stupid visions where Nicolas Cage thinks he sees the girl on the boat,
Oh,
and then she gets hit by a truck and he realizes it's a vision. And there's the laughable moment where he dives into the water because she thinks she's underwater, and he does this bizarre sideways dive that I've never seen before. He like his body doesn't even move right. He can't even move normal, and so he dives into the water, and then he snaps out of his vision, and he's sitting on the dock, and the camera pulls back, and he's holding her corpse, and then the camera pulls back again, and he's not holding her corpse, and his reaction is, "God damn it."
I know. And then they flash to him holding her corpse again, I think.
He's just like put upon by his visions.
Extremely put upon. I also noticed, and this dive scene kind of made it stand out to me. Not only was this this was the beginning of us recognizing Nicolas Cage as kind of like the schlocky actor that he has potential to be. I also think this is the last time that hair and makeup was conservative with adding more hair to him.
Oh, really?
Because in later movies, maybe not every single one, but in a lot of later movies, he's got kind of like a spray on hair quality or like a ton of it where it's like too thick and weird. And this, it looked pretty normal. It wasn't like super thick. It wasn't like crazy thin. I was like, this looks like this. I can accept this hair.
I'll take it a step further.
Okay.
I actively like him for the first maybe like 10 minutes of the movie.
I love to watch him. Like, that's also part of why I liked it more. Like, even when he's ridiculous, and this is not groundbreaking, he's so much fun to watch.
He's a lot of fun to watch, but also like he was being like a very sort of like kind, normal person for the first like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, so kind of like the prologue where he is stopping the people in the car.
Yeah, he's stopping people in the car, and the little girl is like throwing a doll out the back window almost to get his attention in a way. And then he's not able to save them. This woman and her daughter die in a big car wreck, and that's going to haunt him for the rest of the movie. And when we cut to him in his home, where he's like now traumatized by what happened, and he's taking leave from the police station, he's just sort of sitting there and staring into the middle distance. And I actually like believed him as a troubled person who's like sort of like struggling in a very dark place. I also had a weird feeling, which is like the 73 movie, when it kicks off, like he just lands at the island and he says, they don't show it, but he says, I got, an anonymous letter sent to me saying that a girl named Rowan's been missing, so I've come to investigate. We see that happen for Nick Cage, which I both think is like, oh, okay, if you're going to do a new version, show some of how they lured him out there, because this is all a big ruse to get these guys to the island. But so I had this feeling, though, where it's weird that it's a little weird to me that the movies are about a girl's missing, police officer come find them. Right. And I thought, they show him try to save a little girl from a car accident and fail, and she dies. And I was like, is this his save the cat moment? Where we're supposed to be like, oh, he's a noble hero and this
is a good guy.
I should get invested in him. As if you would not be invested in somebody who went to an island to try to find a little girl already. Like, do you need him to have failed to save a different little girl to understand why he'd want to save someone else? Like, isn't it just a noble act in and of itself to go try to save this other kid? So I always thought that was weird.
Well, I mean, I was about to say, but it works for both things. It is his job to go save the girl on the island. So there would be a distinction there, but there's not, because it's also in the course of his job that he sees the girl, hurt in the car crash. So,
but he's also way outside his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So he really shouldn't be there, right? Like, he only went because he was engaged to Willow, who is a resident of Summers Isle. And so when he goes out there really for her, to help her find her daughter. And then of course finds out that her daughter is his daughter.
Yeah, and it keeps unraveling. Like, things are all weird where she'll be like, people are like, she never existed. Oh, she did exist, but she died, and this lady can't accept it or whatever. And then, so that's all head spinning. And then she's like, you have to find our daughter. I mean, yes. it is our daughter. And it's like, my God, how many different factors roll into the missing girl?
It was about right there that I started going, this is really starting to drag. It started
Yeah,
to really slow down for me. And I was like, I don't need this to be his daughter. And he
Same.
was already invested enough. And it almost like,
Totally.
in a weird way, it almost cheapens him to be like, yeah, I wouldn't save her unless you were my kid. Or like, now it's really important now that she's my kid. And it's like, well, you came out here to find someone who was missing. Like, again, it's already a noble act to be doing this in the first place. That's enough of trying to set up that he's a good guy.
Yeah.
It's weird to me to go so far as to be like, yeah, she's your kid. So now the stakes are even more raised.
Well, I guess we have to cancel out all the later punching of women in the face.
I see. That is
with lots of care for children.
It's astounding. I
think it's 3 women, but it's not just a single punch per woman. He's really going for it. He definitely gives Lily Sobieski the worst of the business, but he smacks Sister Beach right in the puss and drops her like a sack of taters.
He kicks Lily Sobieski. Yeah. He gives her like
it's just short of a spin kick,
a judo kick. Yeah, it's
he's like to the side.
It's something Neo would do.
Yes,
from the Matrix.
Neo wishes,
and the way that Lily Sobieski flies into that wall,
the force this guy must have had behind him.
And there are like framed pictures on the wall, and they all like burst off the wall and shatter. Like it was like. They may as well just had him kick her through the wood cabin to the outside. Like it was so unexpected and unnecessary.
Oh, God.
Unnecessary roughness.
Absolutely unnecessary roughness, like in the Puppy Bowl. It was wild. But I felt the same way. I would have given that guy a
timeout.
I wrote in my notes that I'm more bored than I thought I would be about midway through.
Okay.
Like I was like, okay. Now, I want to be clear. I don't love this movie. I'm not. When I say that
you love it.
When I say I enjoyed it more than the original Wicker Man, I don't mean that like this is a fantastic movie. But
and I was not bored by the original at all. I thought the original was really interesting.
I was a little bit bored sometimes. I was more bored in the new one than the old one.
So even in the original, like you called out that they have like a pretty normal pub where these dudes are singing gross songs. The entire island is about, harvest and bounty and growth.
And boobies.
Yeah, it's all about, I mean, that's like, they're all about March hares, and hares are known for doing the do. Like it's all about that stuff.
I really liked all the hares.
And that's why those gross old men sing those songs, and why the bar matron lady dances along with them and plays into it a little bit. It's the nature of the island is all this weird doing the do stuff. Mm-hmm. But so when our, stick in the mud officer shows up, he has to get their attention. So he starts banging his badge on the bar to get them all to shut up. And it's like, I think you all should know that I'm here for official business. He's sobering the party when he does that. Mm-hmm. Nicolas Cage has a repeat of that exact moment.
There are a bunch of repeats. I could not believe that you're all liars, and you're the biggest liar of them all, was in the original.
And it plays normal in the original.
More normal, I would say. I don't think it's very normal.
I think it's absolutely.
You're all a bunch of liars. And you're the biggest liar of them all. Again, saying all this in front of children, it's weird.
Well, but if you are a devout officer who is a regimented cop and you're telling people that they're lying, they're breaking the law by lying to an officer. So to me, it had the weight of you should not be. It's not just you're lying to me, which is what I get from Nick Cage, where Nick Cage almost just seems offended that they would lie to him.
Yes. I feel it's the same for both. I felt that it was a personal showing through the cracks. This guy is he's kind of had it. And now he's being like, you're little liars, personally mad at them.
Oh boy. No, I really did not think that. But so when Nick Cage bangs his badge on the bar to go excuse me, everybody. It's in a very quiet room where, again, to your point, they're weaving headdresses.
Yeah.
And it's everybody just quietly sitting at tables. He doesn't need to slam his badge on the bar. He just blunders in like this big oaf, this big dumb weirdo from a different place, and says a bunch of things that nobody understands. Like he goes like, "How's it hanging?" or something, and the barmaid's like,
"Oh yeah,
what's that city talk?"
Yes,
you know, I don't know. Like he just like he there's an assumed ownership that he has of the situation there. That's insane to me.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, he's like, all right, you guys are all a little bit more primitive than me, so I should be able to kind of like handle this. This should be kind of child's play.
And
but it's not necessary. I mean, they are primitive in a way, but it's not like levels of difficulty or ease or anything. They're just on a totally different playing field.
Yeah, 100%. It's and I honestly think that as much as I'm criticizing that, I actually think it almost plays into a strength of the Nick Cage movie that makes it unique from the original Wicker Man. But let's talk about that in a second. I think maybe let's take a quick break.
All right. Before we go any further, we want to tell you about our sponsor, Tracy Michelle Bullock of simplicitydoyourdream.com. Now, you may have heard us talk about Tracy before, but we have a different perspective this time because Will and I took advantage of one of her free 30-minute discovery coaching calls.
And it was fantastic.
Yep.
First of all, it was really nice to speak, to Tracy directly after so much of like talking about her and understanding what her service is about. But it was really, she asked a lot of questions that I don't know, got us thinking, and I think really constructive ways.
Yeah, she jogged some concrete ideas in us. I thought that was really interesting too. Like, not only did she have things that she brought to the table, but also just from talking to her, Will and I organically unlocked some things in ourselves that I think we're going to act on. So we couldn't recommend her more highly.
Absolutely.
So Tracy offers free 30-minute coaching sessions that you can book through Instagram or her website. So getting started couldn't be any easier.
That's right. Go check out Simplicity Do Your Dream and make your appointment for career coaching from someone who really gets it. Go to @Tracy Michelle Bullock or simplicitydoyourdream.com. And just for Guide to the Unknown listeners, Tracy is still offering 20% off your first month of coaching if you name drop GTTU Pod when you get in touch with her.
That's right. And like I said, we really, really recommend it. So go check her out on Instagram at Tracy Michelle Bullock, Michelle with one L, or at simplicitydoyourdream.com and let Tracy know that GTTU Pod sent you for 20% off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two different movies, the quote unquote cults have different, methods of operation. They believe in somewhat different things. So in the 70s version, it's all about like procreation and bountiful harvest. And it is, it's a patriarchal society headed up by Christopher Lee, who people might know as like Sauron from Lord of the Rings, or the Hammer horror movies as, Dracula. But so he's like a big, scary villain. And yet everything in that movie is so sort of like jolly in a way about everything that they believe. Yeah. And then in the 2006 movie, it's almost exclusively about bees. Like there is this concept about like harvest in a way, but it's all about honey for them.
I don't think it's all about honey, but it's definitely bee heavy. I was like, I understand the bee motif.
I know it's bees. I like, get it. Whoa.
Like you work with bees, and then your entire island is kind of like a colony. And then Ellen Burstyn Summerisle is like the queen bee, and they even have little honeycomb things like set up like a labyrinth. It's and look, I love bees and honey.
And Nick Cage is allergic to bees.
Yes,
in the movie, it's established.
Who could have seen that coming?
And yet he loves honey. Both movies have a scene where the cop character is disappointed to find out that the food is not up to par for what you'd expect. So in the 70s movie, Sergeant Howie is disappointed that the lentils come from a tin.
Yeah, and he's like, they aren't. He called them flat beans.
Yes,
I think they're lima beans, and he's like, they're not usually turquoise.
Turquoise. Yeah. And he even he didn't even want to have an apple for his afters because it would be it wasn't grown on the island.
Well, I have the benefit of just having watched this. They didn't even have apples. He asked for an apple, which first of all, I was like, well, that's an odd dessert, but fine.
It was for his afters.
Yeah, for his afters. And they said, no, we don't have that, but we have peaches and cream. And he's like, from a can, I imagine. Or whatever.
I know, like, he's so snooty. And then in the 2006 movie, Nicolas Cage struggles to get honey out of one of those plastic honey bears. And which is like, I don't know, like at least the original Sergeant Howie is like, he's just frustrated that he's eating things from tins on this place that's supposed to be all about harvest.
Right.
And then Nicolas Cage is even like, it's like every ounce of the 2006 movie is just dripping with weird comedy where it's like, why does he have to be paired up with a stupid honey bear jar? You know what I mean? Like he can't, there's like not one normal thing. Anyway, he's frustrated that there's no honey and yet they have an empty honey bear on the tables in the restaurant. It's just, it's very bizarre. So anyway, the bee idea, I think is actually, it's, I wouldn't say it's underdeveloped because it's very in your, it's very in your face, but not aware. Super developed.
Yeah.
But like, I sort of like, there's a moment in the movie where Nicolas Cage has realized that all the men on the island don't talk. Mm-hmm. They're always just working. They're like carrying logs and, at one point he tries to talk to a guy and the guy won't speak, but he makes this sound that almost indicates he either never learned how to talk or had his tongue cut out.
Right.
So I don't know if these are men that were brought to the island or born on the island. And this is just the existence for men there.
I'm not totally sure either, but they did say something that made me wonder if they were born on the island, where he was talking to Ellen Burstyn and she was like, I'm paraphrasing, but she was basically saying, like, we hope they get pregnant and we hope that they have like, the superior child. And he's like, a woman. And she's like, that's right. And he's like, well, what do you do if it's a man or whatever? And she's like, I don't know. She says something. So it made me wonder.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think perhaps intentionally left for you to draw those conclusions, or who knows?
So it's exactly that moment where she's like, we hope that they're born in the preferred way.
Yeah.
As a woman, where I was like, there's a men's rights activist version of this movie.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's super duper duper, like, not even feminist, just like pro-woman.
I don't even know if that's true, because Nicolas Cage is presumed to be our hero. He's our protagonist, and they're supposed to be the kooky cult. So it's almost like a man is showing up to this island and trying and failing to fix things in a way, and making fun of them for thinking that women are superior.
I said that wrong. Like, their whole thing is pro-woman.
Okay, yeah.
The movie isn't pro-woman.
No, this is
no.
This is a crazy movie.
It's an insane movie.
Yeah.
And also, like, I thought it was telling at the end when they're putting like all the bees, when they're putting the bees in his bonnet, and he's like, "You bitches!" I was like, "Oh, you were holding that back."
Yes. 100%.
Like, you could be like, how could you, whatever, but like, he spits out "you bitches," like, not just "you animals, you assholes," whatever.
He's a He-Man woman hater.
Yeah, he's definitely a He-Man woman hater. So there's for sure like an MRA sort of view of this movie, and they would not be into this island.
And I don't know. I feel like I almost wish that was more the point in a way. So like in the 70s movie, like the way that everything sort of like comes together, he learns a little bit about their pagan rituals, and that they have a parade where everybody dresses up in costumes. Mm-hmm. And in order to like sort of infiltrate it, to hopefully find Rowan, who he believes is alive but is due to be sacrificed to bring back the harvest, he ends up stealing a Punch costume.
Yeah. And
Punch is from those old Punch and Judy plays where, you think about them from like, Sherlock or, I don't know, Sweeney Todd maybe.
Yeah, like that kind of era.
Yeah, those little puppet shows where they're little hand puppets and they hit each other with mallets. Punch is the fool. So our cop ends up dressed as the fool, and he's marching in the parade while Christopher Lee is going like, he thinks that, presumably he thinks that he's the guy who's supposed to be in the costume. He's like, come on, you old fool. What have you had too much to drink? Dance, play the fool. Yeah. And so our stick in the ass cop has to dance and cavort about in this pagan ritual. And I was like, this is great. This is almost like he's now having to take part in and almost have fun in to blend in a pagan ritual, which is the opposite of who he thinks he is.
Yeah.
I thought that was almost like brilliant.
Yeah,
the Nick Cage version is insane. they don't.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
They don't very well establish that there's going to be a big parade, but he does think that Rowan might be sacrificed.
Right.
Now this island's all about bees. Yeah. But for some reason, the costumes they're wearing are all like woodland creatures.
Yeah.
Like foxes and
I mean, I guess you had to differentiate from each other. There's not a whole lot of differentiating factors on bees.
Just dressed like bees.
Dressed up like a bee.
I don't know, but the whole thing is bees. Yeah. So that didn't make sense. Anyway, the barmaid, they have an awkward scene where somebody's...
just more a nod to the original than anything. You know what I mean? I don't think it's just in keeping.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be a nod to the original. It should make its own logical sense internally.
Yes.
So there's a scene in the movie where somebody is telling the barmaid, like, I guess they had to let out your bear suit again because you're so big and fat, right? Yeah. And this actress has to go like, yeah, it does seem like it's been getting tighter over the years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is because he's going to put the bear suit on. And they have to justify why a lady's bear suit fits onto this big Nick Cage.
Well, that was also a throwaway line in the original that Christopher Lee was walking by somebody and he was like, oh, I had to let out your suit a little. It was like the exact same thing.
Well, that's fine. But again, it doesn't, by changing the context.
I feel it works.
It's not, it's so weird. This movie is almost the 1997 Psycho or whatever year that was, the Gus Van Sant Psycho, where it's almost a shot for shot remake, except they just took the dialogue. They took dialogue from the 70s movies and changed a lot of the context for the IMDb will have you believe that 80% of the dialogue is the same. I can't imagine that's true. There's no way that's true. But a lot of the dialogue. Also,
the 1973 movie is practically a musical. There is so much singing. Oh my God.
I was very concerned when that movie opened with several minutes of a song about corn.
And like barley and corn cakes. Yeah. I know.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No.
But Nicolas Cage now is in this goddamn bear suit trying to blend into the parade. How much better would it be if he put on the disguise of the men of the island? If he had to blend in by looking like a drone, right? Looking like he's just carrying logs and having to become just like in the 73 original, Christian guy has to become pagan guy to blend in. He-Man woman hater alpha male has to become drone beta male to blend in.
I guess I'm just pausing because of that face. I mean, I think because there are only like 10 men on the island, so I think that he would stick out like a sore thumb.
I guess that's true.
I don't know
but
how
it's
it would work. Thematically, I definitely hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I'm also advocating.
Cool idea.
I'm also advocating for maybe get rid of the parade. And maybe you find a different thing for the men to wear so that they seem a little more anonymous, I guess. Because you're right, that Nicolas Cage moneymaker, you would see that face and just know.
From a mile away.
I do think that they didn't consider themes of their movie, and they were like, well, there was a parade in the original, so he has to wear a costume.
Yeah.
So as a result, he runs around in a bear costume for a little while. It's just so stupid. And it's so poorly considered. They didn't think about it, Chris, and they didn't think about it.
Whoa. Or did they think about it? Bear, honey?
Oh.
Is it any coincidence that he's dressed as a bear?
Well, so he wants the honey.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
I don't know exactly. I'm just saying that off the top. But bears and honey are a thing.
Yeah, that's what the writer said.
This place is full of honey.
That's probably what the director brought up, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're right."
Okay, that works.
And then they all just moved on.
Okay, speaking of the director, something that I texted you, Will, that was a little bit less disturbing than me saying that I liked The Wicker Man, was I asked you if you noticed the very brief celebrity cameo in the 2006 Wicker Man.
That's right.
Okay. And you don't know, right?
No.
Okay. Aaron Eckhart is at the bar that's in the very, very beginning of the movie. He like gets the check or something from the person behind. It's like a diner or a bar or whatever. He basically gets his check and leaves, and that's it. And I was like, is that Aaron Eckhart? That's really weird. So I looked it up, and I had this whole debate with myself, basically, because you may or may not know from listening to the show previously, Will and I had argued for a long time about whether Neil Lane in Addams Family Values was a cameo or a job. And that's its own separate thing. But I was having the same feeling here. I was like, I know who Aaron Eckhart is, but like, what's going on? So at first I thought, I was like, well, let me find out when The Dark Knight came out, because that might be like when he became like really famous.
Right.
And so at first I saw that The Dark Knight came out in 2008, and then this came out in 2006. So I wrote, this was not a cameo. Then later I write, correction. It kind of is. It's like a fun walk on, because he was friends with director Neil LaBute in college. Then I do a little bit more research, and I receive further confirmation that it is in fact a cameo, and so I've tipped over to that side. The movie Thank You for Smoking came out in 2005, which he was the star of. So I say cameo now.
I'm gonna pull a trick that you employed when we had our debates about Nathan Lane and Addams Family.
Okay.
It's not a cameo. It's a fun thing for like the director and Aaron Eckhart. That's it.
Yeah, kind of, but that movie was like a big hit.
Yeah, but here's the Nathan Lane thing, is that he's got a big, larger than life attitude, and they give a spotlight to him for several minutes for no good reason. So like Aaron Eckhart, what, he pays the bill and leaves?
Yeah.
What a rush.
Right?
You know, like, I don't know.
Okay, I hear you. I definitely hear you. So I think that I would like to downgrade then back to fun thing for him and the director.
Right.
However, he happens to be a famous guy.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
It's not like a cameo, like, woo, is that Aaron Eckhart? But he was indeed famous.
Right. It wasn't to make people sit up in their seats and clap.
No. Okay.
Wow. You noticed that?
Yeah.
He wasn't the other cop friend, was he?
Oh, no. No.
No,
he seriously is in it for like 2 seconds. It's weird.
That is weird. The other cop friend, Nicolas Cage has a friend, I guess his partner at the police station, who is clearly meant to be the voice of the audience guy.
Yeah.
Who's going like, so let me get this straight. You're going to some wackadoo island out in the middle of the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. Okay. That sounds like a good idea. He like does all these like annoying things where I was like, this guy might be part of the problem with the tone of this movie. This man is being bigger than Nick Cage right here, and I couldn't understand it.
That guy was a whole lot. Also, did you notice that the music was by Angelo Badalamenti?
I did notice that. It is shocking. Angelo Badalamenti, who did the score for Twin Peaks.
Yep.
Did the score for Wicker Man 2006.
It's so weird.
Disturbing. To me, they're
like not particularly. Oh no, I'm lying. I was gonna say it's not particularly weird and standout. However, there are things about the score that I like. There are lots of like weird, whispery sort of things
that's
going
true.
on. So actually, the score is kind of awesome in that way.
Yeah, I think that there are certainly things about this movie that I'm not against, but there are just as many weird choices or things that I just firmly don't understand. There's a moment even where Nicolas Cage is allergic to bees.
Right.
And there's a moment where all of a sudden he's just riding his bike around the island. And he's
also,
which doesn't look very dignified, I have to say.
No, it doesn't look dignified at all. Also, he runs into Sister Rose and she like puts her hands on his bike and he pulls a gun on her.
Yes. He goes, I swear to God, I will shoot you. He sounds so weak. He sounds like such a weak...
He totally does. Because he's completely intimidated by all these women.
He sucks.
And he doesn't like that, you know?
It's just...
I mean, nobody likes being intimidated. I guess I should say he's being put in his place by all these women, and he doesn't like that.
He's so scared
Yeah.
I just don't. He's not an authority at all in this movie, and I don't believe that he's in control.
No, they're walking all over him. He's not in control at all. I think
the shittiest cop.
I think that's part of the point, though.
I guess, but
I think it is.
Really, you don't want your protagonist to seem.
I think that's part of the weirdness of the movie. Is that like this guy thought he was going to be in control, but he is absolutely not.
I don't know.
Like he's a protagonist, but.
He feels like he's like improvising and stuff.
I'm sure I mean,
at one moment he says to Willow, he goes, "Something bad's about to happen. I can feel it."
Yep.
And I was like, "This isn't written down."
No, it's not. No way. Because
there's no way this was written in the script.
No. Why are we bringing in some sort of like airy aspect of "I can feel it" to somebody who's supposed to be the logical cop?
It's just awful.
No way.
Just awful. So anyway, he's allergic to bees. He's pushing his bike around. He's not looking where he's going.
Mm-hmm.
And he bumps his bike into a beehive, which seems like a big mistake if you're allergic to bees.
For him in particular,
to walk into a beehive. So he immediately throws his bike aside and starts running on foot.
Yep.
To get away from the bees, which are only swarming more. And then he runs into another beehive on foot this time and falls down and starts rolling down a hill. But the way he's running and swatting at the sides of his head, it's so like with these limp puppet arms. He looks like Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
He looks like it looks insane.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up. He passes out from the bees. He almost acts like he's like allergic to bees, like he's coughing. He's just like, he's like, it's like he's got like a food allergy to bees. And then now I don't know nothing about bee allergies.
I mean, I think that for some people they make your throat close up. So that might be where coughing came in.
Maybe. I'm not trying to diminish that. I didn't believe his acting in particular is what I'm trying to say. So he passes out, and when he wakes up, he's in Sister Summers Isle's abode. And he goes, "I came here to see Sister Summers," and I'm like, "No, you did not come here to see Sister Summers." I
know.
You were taken here because you passed out from too many bees.
I know. He was taken there by Frances Conroy,
who's wonderful.
Like, she's the best, and she's like the town doctor. And he goes to her house first, like pre-bee problem, because he's just like investigating everybody. And she let him in. And I was like, "Oh man, I love this house. I want to move into this house." But then he waits for her to leave and he sneaks back in and goes into like an office where there's like a ton of stuff in formaldehyde. Like there are human babies and animals and stuff. And I was like, "Oh God, never mind. I do not want to live in this house."
Well, so I guess you're right. Also, though, I have to say that's one of the things that I really like about both movies is
totally.
This is modern man judging other society by unfair standards.
Yes.
Right? You're not like us, so therefore you are barbaric and weird. Just because the way that she's studying, and we know that they're murderers by the end. I'm not saying that these places are wonderful places to live, but like
so that was another I was like, are those maybe male babies?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So but like to look at people who have like jars of stuff in formaldehyde to study.
Yeah.
It's like, is that alone a cause to say these people are backwards and, disgusting and barbaric? Like
that'd be a scathing indictment of every high school in the nation.
There you go. And we would never do that.
No.
But so like, it's just, I don't know. It's very modern man judging everybody else for not being him.
Yeah.
In a way, which I actually kind of like. There's a sort of there's like a weird Schadenfreude sense to both of these heroes getting burned up in a thing because they're so presumptuous and shitty about like, you should be living like me. You should believe what I believe. That it's actually it's kind of enjoyable for that.
Yeah, totally. What did you think of Ellen Burstyn?
I liked her a lot.
Yeah, I thought she carried more gravitas than Christopher Lee.
I thought that I have not seen much Christopher Lee before.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched the 70s, 60s Hammer horror stuff. So I was a little curious to see what he was like. And I actually really liked him.
I did too.
But I do think that Ellen Burstyn had a lot more gravitas. She was meant to be a more grounded, methodical leader, whereas I
like
think
a boss.
Christopher Lee was almost like a swinging 70s weirdo.
Totally. He was one of them, but like a little elevated.
Yeah.
She was like, she even said that she's like the mouthpiece for the old gods of this island.
She was dressed like honey. She was wearing like yellow and orange.
Yep.
I did like her.
Yeah, I thought she was awesome. Also, a makeup note, I noticed as soon as we saw Frances Conroy that they like overdrew her lips a little bit to make them bigger, which whatever. And then they did the exact same thing to Ellen Burstyn. They both had like bigger lips than they usually do.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was interesting. They looked exactly the same.
It's to mimic the big, luscious, juicy lips of a bee.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
So sure, that's what everybody thought you were going to say.
What else could it mean?
Nothing.
When Nicolas Cage is talking to Ellen Burstyn, I rewound this to make sure it happened. Mm-hmm. He said, so the whole thing is, does Rowan exist? Is she dead? Is she alive? Whatever. And he knows about that there's a ritual and participating in the ritual. So he goes, even if a victim complies, it's still murder. And he blinks. When he blinks, they added a mushy, gushy, wet slop sound effect to the blink.
What?
It goes like, yeah.
Ew,
when he blinks. Yeah.
Why?
I have no idea. I rewound it twice to make sure. There's a goo mush sound when Nicolas Cage blinks.
Why would they do that?
It's right after he got stung by bees.
What do you think the purpose is?
Big, gross bee venom allergy eyes.
Okay. Ugh.
I don't know.
Is he all swollen at that moment?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. He acts around bees, again, the way that I would act around bees. It all seems to be pretty... I would run from the bee. He doesn't seem especially... He doesn't seem especially vulnerable to the bees more than I would be.
I don't know. I mean, I would certainly run from bees too, but I feel like he's put a fine point on the fact that he's allergic to bees. Maybe that's something.
Maybe.
He talks about it a lot,
Yeah, he does talk about it a lot.
Yeah, so it really puts the emphasis on it.
That is certainly true. So at the end of both movies, the hero is caught. Mm-hmm. It turns out this entire thing has been a ruse. Even Rowan being missing.
Awesome. I love it.
All to lure these guys to the island to eventually have them be sacrificed to bring back A, the bountiful harvest, or B, the bees. Totally. And in the 73 original, I really felt like the cop guy was really just sort of like shocked and taken aback and very quickly turned into like a trapped animal.
Yeah.
Where you could see him just almost like not even being able to like figure out, oh my God, this was all to just get me here.
Yeah.
And then he devolves and he starts like screaming prayers and yelling at them. And he just turns into a stark raving madman for a minute, as like anybody would, but it's just like another deconstruction of him from being civilized man into, struggling. At one point he tries to curse them. I'm like, well, that's not very like Christ-like, right?
No,
and it's like, yeah, they've devoured this guy in a way that like felt shocking.
They swarm him like a bunch of bees, honestly. Like he's in the middle of a circle of people, like all kind of coming together on top of him. That's in the movie that doesn't have the bee motif. Yeah, but it's still true.
Yeah, and then in the Nick Cage version, it's a lot more grisly.
Yeah.
And
more sadistic. Like it feels like it wasn't explained or something, but is there some purpose to pain in their sacrifice? Because it wasn't just straight up swarming him and bringing him to the Wicker Man to set on fire like in the 1973 version. First, they break his kneecaps. Right. Then they put a helmet full of bees on his head.
Which looks terrible.
Yes. And then they bring him to the Wicker Man to burn. So why even bother doing that,
Because it's 2006 and it needs to be a little hairy scary. That's really the only answer. Yeah. Like there's so many things in the 2006 version, like quick cuts and all those dream sequences. It's all just this bizarre millennium flair to try to jam more scares into a movie that is by design meant to be some guy walking around in pastures for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, The Wicker Man is like a dreadful movie. It's not a very scary one.
No, it's really not until the end. I was thinking that, like, this isn't really a horror. I mean, it is when you take it in its entirety, but it doesn't feel like a horror movie for the vast majority of it.
Yeah, I like that about the original.
Yeah.
And in the 2006 one, I'm like, this just feels cheap. So when they put the bee head on Nicolas Cage and they pour a bunch of bees in, for one thing, the CGI, and I know it was 2006, it looks bad.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking about Candyman, Tony Todd. Write into your contract that you get $1,000 every time you get a bee sting, Mr. Cage. Do what Tony Todd did.
Who's to say he didn't?
He sacrificed his body for the play, and he covered himself in bees, and it looked awesome.
Yep.
And then Nicolas Cage has CGI bees, and I think somebody out of spite did something, because when Nicolas Cage very hammily screams, "My eyes! They're in my eyes!" They're not. They're not. You can see his eyes pinched closed. His entire head should have been covered with bees if he's screaming that. His eyes should not even be visible if he's screaming "They're in my eyes." And I can see his eyelashes. I can see it all. It's just a real shockaroo.
Yeah. No, you're not kidding.
And in the 73 original, they put Sergeant Howie in the Wicker Man, which is enormous and frightening looking, and just looks like some bizarre, like, it's made out of wicker, and so it feels natural, but it's in the shape of a person, so that's
it's like humongo
of nature.
Effigy.
It's so unnatural looking and so odd, and they
you wonder how he couldn't have seen it.
I know.
It was just so massive.
And they take their time in there, and you see him as the fire is like consuming it. And the Nicolas Cage one, the Wicker Man itself didn't look quite as imposing.
No, it did. So because I watched it first, it did look imposing, but not as much as the 1973 one did, for sure.
73 one looks amazing.
Yeah, totally.
And then Nicolas Cage's movie, I just feel like instead of like taking their time and giving you a minute to like really think about what's going on, all of a sudden the Wicker Man just kind of falls apart and the movie, it just ends.
Yeah, totally.
It's just over. He's just dead in there.
Yeah. Also, the way they lift him up, it's almost like he's stepped into, like in a cartoon, like stepped into a rope that's in a circle, and then it just like yoinked him up backwards.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like a little silly.
It's everything in the Nick Cage one is silly.
It's silly.
So
I do like in the Nicolas Cage one that his ex-fiance lured him to the island, because it's kind of like a double betrayal. So like not only was he like, oh my God, there wasn't even a missing girl, and you're the one who lured me here. What the hell?
Yeah, I do like some of the stuff that they added there. I don't think that it was, I didn't feel like it was missing from the 73 version, but I did like having the question answered of like, oh, who sent him the letter and why was he lured here? And it's almost like an Amish colony's Rumspringa, where they are allowed to go out in their teenage years to experience modern society and then come back. It's almost like she's sent out to find a person. She found Nick Cage and like picked like, yeah. If we have a bad harvest, I've got a guy that we can sacrifice.
Yeah, and Ellen Burstyn says that this is a book whose chapters have been carefully written. They planned this whole thing and sent her after Nick Cage.
A very ironic phrase to use in a bizarrely constructed
in a movie that isn't so well written.
This is a carefully written book. It's like, is it?
I don't know if the book that actors use to read their script from was so carefully written.
I wish it were.
If only it were.
If only it were. Do you have anything else to say about the movie itself? I have a little bit to say about what happened after the movie came out.
I don't think I do. No, go for it.
So Nicolas Cage.
Oh, also, wait. No, one thing. It's dedicated to Johnny Ramone.
Yeah.
I assume right. A Ramone.
Yeah,
right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So Nicolas Cage, this from Wikipedia, he acknowledged himself that the movie is absurd, saying 4 years later in 2010, there's a mischievous mind at work in The Wicker Man, you know what I mean? And I finally kind of said, I might have known the movie was meant to be absurd, but saying that now after the fact is okay, but to say it before the fact is not, because you have to let the movie have its own life. It's like, that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be nice if you'd sort of considered a tone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you made the movie. In
Pick a lane.
2012, on a live web chat to promote Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance,
Nice.
when asked what roles from his career he would most like to revisit, Cage responded, "I would like to hook up with one of the great Japanese filmmakers, like the master that made Ringu. And I would like to take the Wicker Man to Japan, except this time he's a ghost."
What?
So
I think he's
is he the Wicker Man? The Wicker Man refers to the giant wicker human effigy that these people are burned in.
I think he just says kooky stuff to say it sometimes.
He wants to take.
I really do. Do you remember there was a profile of him like maybe last year or something, and it seems like he's fairly self-aware in general. Like he makes strange choices, but they're sometimes on purpose.
Well, so one of the big things that he's said, a lot of his extreme acting choices supposedly come from German expressionism.
Right.
So very broad performance. Like there is like a performance precedent set for a lot of the stuff that he's doing.
Yeah, there's rhyme and reason.
But we're not making German expressionist films.
I know.
As blockbusters, So like it comes across wild. I do like, he's fun to watch and it's wild to see him like swing for the fences. Yeah. But like, and thankfully this is like, a remake of The Wicker Man. Like, okay. If this was just somebody who had a dream of making a movie and then Nick Cage did this stuff in it.
Oh, I know.
Like if I wrote a script and somebody was like, we're going to option your script. And guess what? We're attaching Nick Cage to it. My feelings would both be hooray and oh.
Yeah.
I wonder what'll happen. Because it seems like it's a big unknown if you're going to get something.
Like, are you going to get adaptation Nicolas Cage or are you going to get the Wicker Man Nicolas Cage?
Exactly. And I want that Wicker Man.
Well, I was talking more about like him just saying weird stuff in the press as a person. Like from what I understand, I think he's a pretty intellectual, if not troubled guy.
Okay.
And I think he like gets jollies kind of from like, I don't know, like from saying strange things and messing with people. I think he's an eccentric dude.
Yeah, I definitely think he's eccentric. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
He wants to take the Wicker Man to Japan, except this time he's a ghost.
That's crazy. What the hell does that mean? I think he just said it and it doesn't mean anything.
He said it and hoped maybe somebody would come back to him and go like, I did it. I wrote the Wicker Man in Japan. So the Wicker Man goes to Japan. Yeah. I want to just confirm something because I think it's odd. The Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man, the reason that why it's a big, scary human effigy is because that's scary. And I think it's really interesting looking because I didn't realize this, they fill out the whole body of it. So in the arms, there are like goats and ducks and pigs and stuff. So they're not just sacrificing a guy, they're sacrificing a bunch of things to their like pagan god. And that's still the same in the new one, but the context of it being a Wicker Man is a little bit different in the 2006 version. It is you're burning a male to sacrifice to your bee gods for your female island. And I actually think that that's kind of interesting. Yeah. That the masculine form is more relevant to the Wicker Man now.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I don't know. I don't understand if Nicolas Cage as a ghost would be known as the Wicker Man.
I don't think so.
Does he think he played the Wicker Man?
No, I don't think he does. I seriously think I bet he was doing interviews for 1,000,000 hours and just pulled some weird thing out.
You're right. I think that's probably more right. It was hour 12 of a press tour, and he's halfway.
I could hear myself saying something stupid like that.
Then we could take the Wicker Man to Japan, except this time he's a ghost.
Yeah, right. Just like something dumb. You just need to like fill the air.
I'm also curious where the inflection was, because if he goes, but this time he's a ghost. It would imply, does he think there was a ghost somewhere in Wicker Man?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Or
because there are visions of the little girl.
Or is it he's a ghost?
This time he's a ghost instead of a human man.
This time. Not like the last time when Straw?
When he was a guy.
Wicker? Yeah.
The Wicker Ghost. So the 2006 movie struggled at the awards.
You don't say.
It was nominated for 5 Golden Raspberries.
Of course.
It was nominated for Worst Picture. It lost to Basic Instinct 2. Nominated for Worst Actor, Nicolas Cage, who lost to Marlon and Sean Wayans for Little Man.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I forgot that Little Man even existed.
Oh my God. Yeah, me too.
Whoa. Nobody talks about Little Man. Everybody talks about white chicks.
I know, but nobody brings up Little Man.
Whoa. Okay, go ahead.
Nominated for Worst Screenplay, but lost to Leora Barish and Henry Bean for Basic Instinct 2. Worst Remake or Spinoff, lost to Little Man. Is that a remake? Or a spinoff of? Is it a spinoff of Big Man?
I have no idea.
I have no idea what Little Man is a remake or a spinoff to.
No.
Worst on-screen couple, Nick Cage in his bear suit, who lost to Sean Wayans and either Kerry Washington or Marlon Wayans for Little Man.
Kerry Washington is in Little Man?
So that's what happened at the Raspberries, but at the 2006 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards.
What?
The 2006 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards.
That's awesome.
The film garnered 2 nominations, one of which was a win. The one they lost was Worst Actor for Nicolas Cage. Okay. He lost to Tim Allen for The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, The Shaggy Dog, and Zoom.
Oh my God.
I guess all 3 of those Tim Allen movies came out in 2006. And then it won for Worst Remake. So sorry, Little Man.
Okay.
Good luck. See you at the next year's, at the 2007 Stinkers Bad Movie Awards.
That's awesome.
Which I've never heard of in my life.
Me neither. Oh my God.
Stinkers Bad Movie Awards.
That's incredible.
I want a little stinker.
Yeah.
You know that they're like,
no big deal.
They're like, I wonder if like celebrities will come to our award, like Halle Berry went to the Golden Raspberries.
Right.
No one's going to the Stinkers.
Nobody calls it the Golden Raspberries, Razzies.
The Razzies, right? Yeah, exactly.
Just so you guys know they're the same thing.
I was reading, like the official Wikipedia entry where they have all the pomp and circumstance.
Yes, of course.
The Razzies.
Right. I mean, does that do it for The Wicker Man? Basically,
the last things I have to say, just because I enjoy the heritage of a property or the origin of stories. So all of this comes from a book called Ritual, written by a guy named David Pinner in '67. Then the '73 movie is made, which they more than adapted. Supposedly it's massively different from the book Ritual, which is why in 1978, Wicker Man is novelized.
Oh.
So Ritual, Wicker Man, the book Wicker Man.
Huh.
Then the Robin Hardy, who directed Wicker Man '73, wrote the novelization. And then he started writing a sequel, and it was called Cowboys for Christ. Okay. The movie didn't get made, so he turned that into a book. And then that got turned into a movie.
Wow. What a circuitous route.
From 2011 called The Wicker Tree.
Oh.
Which I looked up a little bit and looked, rough.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
I had never heard of it before. And then just in 2014, the original author of Ritual, where all this came from, David Pinner, wrote a sequel himself called The Wicca Woman.
Oh, okay.
The Wicca Woman. So I looked it up on Amazon, and here's a review. 1 star. Trash. This book is absolute garbage. It is a sequel to the book Ritual, written decades earlier. Apparently, the author should have reread his first book because he seems a bit confused about events. Well, really, things keep getting mixed up and changing during the sequel as well. Some things that change without reason during this book. Time periods, manner of death, eye color, personalities, names.
Oh, dear.
Agendas. So it seems...
Not a triumph.
Not a triumph. So really, to me, I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is The Wicker Man to me is the 1973 original, which I had never seen until this show and really enjoyed, and the supercut of the 2006 version, which is just so insane to see. But I couldn't recommend it as a movie.
Yeah, I hear that. I can't recommend it as a movie either. I don't even know if me saying that I like it more than the original is actually accurate. I don't know if more is the word, but I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. I don't recommend the remake. I do recommend the original.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
I even noticed something weird about the original. And I think it's a genuine coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
But in the parade, they do this. The hero, Sergeant Howie, reads a book and he learns about everything that happens in the parade that's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be headed up by a person who's simultaneously a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Christopher Lee in a wig and like a dress, and he's dancing around. And they don't make like a big joke out of that. They just sort of like, you would think for the era they might make that a big, absurd joke, but they almost don't really. They just treat it like a fact of the ritual.
Yeah, it's just matter of fact.
But the way he's dressed, it's like very bright yellow and bright purple, and he looks like Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw 2. And I wouldn't put it past like Bill Moseley to have been a fan of The Wicker Man or something and be like, I like that. That's big and colorful and wild. I'm going to do some of that.
Yeah, you never know. That could be.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of
a huge cult classic. So
yeah, exactly.
It makes sense to draw on a movie like that for another horror movie.
For sure. Now, I did write down so many notes that I can't possibly get to, which is almost a shame because I really enjoy. I kept saying to Allie, I can't wait to talk about Wicker Man. But this is just the beginning of our Cagetober, so there will be so much to talk about in the future.
Much to look forward to. So stay tuned for the rest of the month for Nicolas Cage movies, chock-a-block back to back. And also, if you want to see anything else about us, you can go to gttupod.com. You'll find links to our merch store, to our Facebook group, past episodes, and our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/gttupod and donate $4 or more per month, then you get a bonus episode of the show every month. And there's a back catalog of, I think, 25-ish waiting there already. There are also commentary tracks for all 4 of the Scream movies. There are extras like video game playthroughs. And there's a Discord that's only for patrons, so you can chat with other people all day.
Hell yeah. And I want to watch some Cage clips there this month, right?
What?
On Netherworld Dispatch for this month. We gotta watch some Cage clips.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, totally.
Cagetober will continue over there as well, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. gttupod.com is the home of all things Guide to the Unknown. You can find links to that Patreon page Kristen mentioned, to our merch. You can even follow us personally online.
That's right. I'm at Chillin' Kristen.
And I am at...
I started to say GTTU pod.
And I'm at The Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for sticking around with us. We'll see you next time. But until then, I feel like my skull's on fire.
Bees are in my eyes.
Bye. Bees are in my eyes.
It's so funny that they're not even in his eyes at that part.
They're not. I go back and watch, and like they're certainly around his eyes, and maybe one crosses his eye. But I think for that line, they need to be all up in his eyes.
Yeah, I would think so.